Today, I'm speaking with Shameika Rhymes. Shameika is an entertainment journalist and host. Early in her career, she was a television news producer. She has written for USA Today and South Park Magazine's It List issue. She has contributed to ET Online, Essence, Ebony Magazine, Insider, Soul Train, Parade Magazine, and Vanity Fair, just to name a few, because there's a ton more. She has also co-hosted ET Canada Live. Shameika created and continues to write posts for her own blog, themofochronicles.com. I love the name. You may have recognized Shameika as a cast member on the CMT show, I Want to Look Like a High School Cheerleader Again, back in 2007. Honestly, I don't think I've ever looked like a high school cheerleader. Currently, she is the creator and host of the entertainment show, Check the Rhymes, where she interviews influential people on thought-provoking topics. Please give it a watch because it takes an exclusive look into the lives of media personalities and celebrities. So please welcome Miss Shameika Rhymes. Hello, Shameika.
Hello, how are you?
This is great.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Mofo Chronicles. When I first read that, of course, I was just like, mofo. I know what that means. But mofo actually means my own freaking observations. Is that true? I mean, did I read that correctly?
You did, but it actually started out as what you thought it was. But then I was told, like, hey, while you're looking for a job, you might want to tweak that. So it went under our feed brand.
But I love that you changed it to my own freaking observations.
Yeah, because I was like, I can't go back and just totally, I'm like, I've got the domain name. I can't, like, I got to do something with it.
Well, that was very clever, which, I mean, obviously you're incredibly clever because you're just like a jack of all trades. So taking out the obvious skill of being a good writer, how important are good communication skills to what you do professionally?
Oh, super important. And I would say actually being in a newsroom helped me hone those skills because as a producer, you kind of got to be a little bit everything and communicate.
Yes.
And for me, it was a little bit different because even though I was sitting physically in like the Charlotte newsroom, North Carolina, my team of reporters, news director, everybody was 3 hours away in Wilmington, North Carolina. So communication was absolutely important. So I learned really how to hone my listening skills and, giving feedback and accepting feedback, as well as, it's like so many things. Empathy, respect, just being able to really just make sure I'm communicating effectively, because I was dealing with a team of like brand new reporters straight out of college. So they may not understand if I'm saying, I need you to go get a BO, BOSOC, come back, da, 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 you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, let me explain it. And if I change their scripts, then I would also explain why I changed the script, because I wanted them to also understand, like, this is why we can't say this particular thing on TV. You know what I mean? So really just being able to communicate effectively and then listen and give feedback, and just also understand, like, I was a newbie as well at one point, and the things that I would have wanted, I tried to give to them as well. So I think that those are the skills that I also take into my writing career, Check the Rhymes, and everything else that I do.
Well, see, and as you're saying your writing career and Check the Rhymes, I want to really think of you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because you've created yourself and your brand, which revolves around, and this is like everyone's goal, doing what you love. And I have students who hope to go into broadcasting and broadcast journalism. Do you think it's important to market yourself before you graduate? Do you?
I thought about that, and I was like, I guess way back when, before I graduated, I did kind of market myself, but now in today's time with social media and all these social media sites, I would say absolutely 100% you have to.
Yes.
You have to market yourself.
Well, now see, my voice went up when I asked that question, because the other part is, if so, do you have any tips on how students should start doing that?
Especially with broadcast journalism, I think, especially now, and even what I've discovered with Check the Rhymes, it's because I knew that I wanted to do my own thing as far as entertainment news, that type thing, but I wasn't getting the jobs. You know what I mean? So I was like, how can I position myself to brand myself as an entertainment journalist besides just writing? So one of the things that I've learned along the way is putting out my own content, like a YouTube channel, and being consistent with content, but branding myself in a way that, if somebody sees my name, they're automatically going to think, Check the Rhymes. Oh, entertainment journalist, just make all those synonymous with each other. Broadcast journalist, you obviously have to market yourself with a demo reel, resume reel, whatever term that you use now. So I just actually have gone through multiple revisions of trying to put together a reel that I felt showcased my skills and my interview style. So I think that that's important. And then you obviously, a lot of times a website is helpful, or portfolio, because I will say news directors don't have the time. They don't have the time to sit there and search for stuff. So you really have to make it easy for them. So having just a link for them to go to check everything, it's quick and easy. And getting feedback from people in the industry, I think, is important. Super important. Even, I was in television news for 15 years, and I still went to my old news director, when I just created this reel, and I was like, can you please look at it and give me some feedback? And I was like, I really cannot believe I'm having to do that at this point in my career, but it was very helpful. So I knew what to tweak and what not to tweak. So I think doing those things to market yourself before you go out into the world is very helpful. And LinkedIn is huge. And then I would also say, like, going to like these career conferences, like broadcast journalism. I know they've got like NABJ, I don't know the other ones, but there's a ton. And I think going to those to market yourself and position yourself, networking, is huge.
That's a really, really good idea, especially since now, because of with COVID and now the Delta variant, I wonder if
Yeah,
some of those conferences now are moving online, which would make them easier to be a part of for
they
students.
absolutely are. They are. I saw that NABJ is definitely moving there. Actually, I think they did it last year. It was online. So they also
Mhm.
have, like, a space where you can like meet recruiters and talk to news directors and show them your reel. You just have to, sign up for these conferences.
Now, when you decided you wanted to be a broadcast entertainment journalist, did you have a mentor, or like a goal person that you were trying to get to that same point as them, or to try to emulate some of the stuff that they were doing?
You're gonna laugh because even growing up, who I was looking to is, like, I absolutely loved all these dance shows. So like Soul Train, American Bandstand.
I love it.
I was like, I want to be on, I wanted to be an MTV VJ. That is what I wanted to do. I wanted to like host those fun shows, the spring break shows on MTV, or host Soul Train. So but of course, once you go to college and you realize, like, this is not how this works. So
Mhm.
it just became like I kind of switched the focus of, I'm not in a position to be in LA or New York at that time, or however, I think those were the cities that that stuff was in. But I ended up really, watching people like Oprah and Sally Jesse Raphael or Ricky Lake, those type of people, just to, I think, and Jenny Jones, all those talk shows,
You're naming
just to
all the
get
people that yeah. That was like the 90s, wasn't it? Was it the 90s or the late
yeah,
80s? I can't remember. I think it was more so the
yeah,
90s.
the 90s, yeah, yeah, and Teen Summit on BET, like all the shows. I think Video Soul, Arsenio Hall actually was
Oh,
probably one of the most influential, because I love the relationship he had with his guests. and how
Yes.
the banter, it just felt like just conversation. Like we were just spying on a conversation between him and his friend. I mean, a lot of times when Eddie Murphy was on there, it was his friend, but but it just, so I thought, that is how that comfort level and being able to just talk to someone and get them to open up. That's what I wanted to do.
Now, getting back to the Mofo Chronicles, your blog, is that, did you just wake up one day and just say, you know what, I'm going to create a blog about myself, or I'm going to create a blog about all the stuff that I'm thinking about? How did that come about?
So I went through a bad breakup and
Been there.
yeah. And so I moved to Knoxville and, didn't have any friends, didn't know anybody. And one night I was like, I feel like writing. I feel like I need to get this out. And so at the time, the platform was like Yahoo 360. So this was like early, like 2004, I think, or late 2004, early 2005. And so I started writing about dates I was going on. And so I started to pick up, like, people were reading it, and I thought, okay, so people are interested in this. So eventually I moved that. I think they shut that platform down. I moved over to MySpace. That's how old this is,
Oh,
MySpace, and
I
then
had a
Facebook.
MySpace.
Yeah, and then I moved it to Facebook, and people kept saying, like, you need to start something. And so one of the things I kept using the word mofo when I was describing somebody, mofo this, mofo that. So literally one morning, I literally sat up. It was like probably 6 a.m. and I was like, Mofo Chronicles. That's it. And so
Love
that's
it.
just kind of how that was born. But I didn't launch it until, like, I think it was 2009.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, and I see that Mofo Chronicles is part of the She Media Partner Network.
Yes.
Did you seek them out, or did they approach you? How did that come about?
I had attended a lot of their blogger conferences that they have, and they would always talk about, like, become a part of our network. And I just thought, you know what, my blog doesn't have enough, you know, views, or I don't write enough on that blog anymore. So I was like, I'm not going to do it. But with the pandemic, things change. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, let me just apply and see. And I was not honestly expecting them to respond, because I think you've got, in hindsight, I probably should have done it years ago, because I think at the time they wanted you to have at least 50,000 views on your blog, something like that. And I've got at this point, like, over 650,000 views. And so,
I
of course,
love it.
immediately they're like, absolutely. So it was like a year contract. And I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Really, they're just putting ads on your blog. So you're monetizing your blog is what you're doing, which I don't know why it took me so long to do that, but it's been a great experience. So I decided to continue to work with them because they're very helpful. I'm not technical at all. If something happens to my website, I'm like, please help, and they jump right in.
Well, and I know you have swag because my husband has a sweatshirt, and I was actually going to wear it today, but then I was afraid I'd sweat too much. And then I was
Oh
also
yeah.
afraid because it's a large that I would be swallowed and I would just look huge with a little tiny head. So I decided against wearing it. I got to get one my own size. Was that
Yeah.
was that your idea because you had created a brand for yourself, or was that something that She Media kind of suggested for you?
Well, a friend had created a Mofo Chronicles T-shirt for me, and then the thought had appeared years ago, but then I didn't do anything with it because I was like, I don't want to have to be the one to deal with shipping stuff out. So again, going back to the pandemic, I was like, oh, I have time now. And people kept saying, like, you need Check the Rhyme shirts, because another friend had made me a Check the Rhyme shirt, and I was wearing it in my interviews, and even like Sean Stockman from Boys to Men was like, I would like one of those shirts. And I was like, I
I
don't
love
have
it.
any cool
Yes.
shirts. This is the only one I have. So I thought, you know what, I could maybe just test it out. And so I found Teespring, and I was like, I love that they'll ship it there. All I have to do is just create the page, and I don't have to do anything except maybe throw a discount code on there every now and again. And yeah, so I just added some new merchandise. So it's been cool. I'm just horrible at marketing it.
Professionally, what is one lesson on your journey that you either had to learn the hard way or that you think college didn't prepare you enough for?
One of the things, I don't think I realized that in certain positions in the newsroom that you were under contract. I just thought anchors had contracts, that's it. So I wish that college had taught me a little bit more about contracts as far as um, you can't just up and quit. You know, like you
That's a
have
great
to,
point.
yeah, you're under contract. So there's some things in that contract you need to read. But luckily I, was able to get out of, I think I got out of 2 contracts because it just either wasn't the right fit or I was ready to go. And in hindsight, I'm like, I probably should have read those contracts a little bit better. And I also did not learn how to negotiate a salary. So I just took whatever they offered, so that, and then years later, I'm like, you can negotiate? Like I had no idea. So until I got like my 3rd or 4th news job, I didn't know I could negotiate that salary.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually an excellent point, because when I was first starting out, of course, I was in sales and management. I didn't negotiate. They just said, here, we want to make you salaried and we're going to give you this salary. And I said, awesome. Right. That sounds great. I'm rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little did I know that, because I grew up in Orlando, little did I know that I couldn't afford to live on my own, even being a salaried person who I assumed was a professional. I didn't know how to negotiate.
Yeah. Like I think about my first contract and I was making 18,000. Like you can't live off that.
No, you can't. Once you get out of rent, I mean, shoot, rent has got to be more than half of that, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, granted at that time, well, no, I was still struggling because I had a car payment too. And then you throw it, I'm like, wait, you have to pay other bills too?
Yes. Well, I think part of the reason we don't negotiate, especially early on in our careers, is like we feel like they're taking a chance on us, like,
right.
Like that you don't have this enough skills. You almost feel like you're pulling one over on somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So once I found that out, I think the job that I took when I moved to Charlotte, whatever they offered, I was like, let's talk about that. And it's including moving expenses. So that was really like, okay, now I feel empowered because I didn't get exactly what I want, but I got close to it.
Yes. Yeah. I became empowered the moment that I started making the same kind of money as my dad.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because, growing up, it's like, well, growing up, I grew up knowing about bills. I grew up knowing about the water bill, knowing about the power bill, knowing exactly how much it was that month, and knowing that they were struggling. Both my parents were blue collar working people, and I knew the value of money, that's for sure. Yeah. So when I got to the point where I was making in my career the same amount that my dad was when I was growing up, I was like, yeah, I'm an adult now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, going back to your writing, because I have had students in my class that want to be a writer. They just say, I want to be a writer. I don't teach writing. So I never really dabbled into what exactly they want to do. But how did you get yourself out there? I mean, I listed all these different magazines that you've contributed for.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Actually, the Mofo Chronicles was the starting point, because once I had that blog going and the comments were rolling in, and I happened to know someone here that had a website, and I was like, hey, we should collaborate. Like, let me write something for your site. Like, I don't know. I was like, let me do an interview with this artist. And he was like, all right, I'm not paying you. So I was like, I just want to see if I can do it. It's fine. And I did it and I loved it. And so I went to, I knew the editor at Creative Loafing here in Charlotte. And I knew at that time he was looking for bloggers. So I teamed up with him to write a blog like for Creative Loafing but he was also like promoting the Mofo Chronicles on there. So it was like a good collaboration. I don't think I was being paid either, but, and I don't recommend that, but,
well, that is
but
what, oh, sorry,
yeah.
you can go on.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say that's one thing that in hindsight, I wish that I did not write for free for
I was going to ask
exposure.
you that.
Yeah, for exposure, but it worked out because I didn't do it that long. I probably did maybe 3 or 4 months of those blogs for Creative Loafing, and then they let me do a paid assignment, which was interviewing Jackie Jackson from the Jackson 5. His son is like the only rapper in this entire family of Jacksons. And so that was my first paying gig. And I was like, I really love doing this. So I took those 2 clips and my blog link, and I started looking online. I was like, where would I be comfortable writing? Like, where can I shoot my shot? And I came across soultrain.com, which obviously was one of my favorite shows. So cool. I just happened to send an email with all the confidence in the world, like they're not going to turn me down. And it just so happened that they wrote back like a couple days later, like, we're actually looking for writers. So I wrote for them for 5 years. And actually that felt like the training ground for me, because I honed my interview skills there. I was able to network and create connections that I still have today. You know, and especially these connections with artists that now I've built relationships basically. So I can just reach out to somebody and text them myself. I don't need to go through their publicist because of the relationship that I built during that time. And they trust me. They're like, oh, she's not trying to be like Wendy Williams and put me on blast. She's gonna be fair and tell my story objectively. So I think that also helped, you know, kind of getting so basically Mofo Chronicles was the starting point to get me to Soul Train. And then from there, it's just, you know, doors just kind of open, because Soul Train name got me in a lot of doors that I couldn't have gotten open by myself. Like I learned how to go on red carpets and do interviews like blindly. I had nobody teaching me this stuff. It was just like, I literally remember being on the red carpet for the BET Hip Hop Awards in Atlanta. And I'm like, how do I record this? What do I do?
Well, is that one thing that you would suggest for students or early professionals? It's like, allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow yourself to make those mistakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think being able to make any mistakes and learning all this stuff then has helped me now, because like, for example, when you were asking about a lesson that I learned, I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned during that time writing for Soul Train was I would do interviews, Q&As, write them, turn them in. I didn't really pay attention to how they were written. I would just throw an intro on there, transcribe it out, done. Until there was a guy that I remember getting such a hateful email, and he was like, take it off the site right now. He's like, it's horrible. I don't like it. And that crushed me, because I'm like, I'm a good writer.
That was the guy you interviewed?
Yeah, he
oh
wanted it taken down. And so when I went back, because at first I thought he's being like, it's literally his words. And I realized like, I didn't clean this up at all. I didn't like edit it. I literally just threw it out there, gave it to the editor, and was like, here. And I guess she didn't do her job either, but it made me go back and really look at like, how can I tell his story but still keep his voice in there? And so when I took the time to take his feedback, because I asked him like, what is it you don't like? He told me, gave me that feedback, and I actually took the time to fix it. And the second time I let him look at it before we posted it, and he was in love with it. So I was like, okay, don't rush through stuff just to get the content out there. Take your time. It's okay.
Is there anything we didn't cover today that you think is important in terms of communication students and early professionals? I know we've touched on quite a bit, but I always am afraid that I'm leaving out something really important.
If we go back to talking quickly about my brand, the Mofo Chronicles, and why I created Check the Rhymes, it was because I had branded myself so well as Mofo Chronicles without even trying that, like, all my social media is Mofo Chronicles. And it got to a point where I would be at an event and like a rapper from the West Coast would see me and be like, Mofo Chronicles. And I'm like, that's not my name. Like, and I'm like, how do you know me? So
That is
it
so
just,
cool.
yeah. So it just really, I wanted to rebrand myself not as a blogger because I felt like that's what I was known as a
Mhm.
blogger for Mofo Chronicles and not really as a journalist. So a mentor that I had, he said, you're going to have to really brand yourself as an entertainment journalist, but you're going to have to do it under another name because otherwise you're going to be known as Mofo Chronicles. And I didn't want to get rid of Mofo Chronicles, but I had already started my YouTube channel as Mofo Chronicles. So I literally revamped it and got a logo, all that stuff. And Check the Rhymes was born last
Were
year.
you
So.
kind of afraid that you weren't going to get some interviews if you had kept up with the Mofo Chronicles? Were you afraid that you wouldn't have been able to interview some gospel music people or?
At the time I thought I cannot reach out to Dionne Warwick's people and ask her to come on the Mofo Chronicles. That was the other thing. Because originally I was just gonna do blogs and I was like, I've outgrown talking about dating. I don't want to do it. I want to do what I love, which is interviewing different like people, celebrities and stuff. And so, and then creating, partnerships with, a lot of the interviews I get is through a satellite media company, having to put all these pieces in place so that I had content and all that stuff. And then I do have a part-time job as well. So it's like, okay, I also have to fit that in, which is a communications job. So it's not like, you can still work in communications and it doesn't have to necessarily be like television or writing or whatever like that, but because I work for a nonprofit as well. So
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
I guess that's another thing. Through them I have learned how to do a lot of marketing. So I've learned how to use Canva, which I've used for Check the Rhymes, and I've learned how to um, even put podcasts together because we created a podcast. Though just these little elements that I'm learning there I can also apply over here. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I create a newsletter for them every week. So now I know how to do a newsletter if I decide to do that at some point.
Well, you lucked out because you've got a good name.
Yeah, right. And I didn't want to use the last name rhymes at all. Like if you
What?
could see the list that I had, I was doing everything I could possibly do to not use it.
Oh man, you could have ended up with the name Smith.
Right.
It just would have been so boring. There's no way to use that. But Check the Rhymes. It just
Yeah,
works. And it's so cool, especially in terms of the entertainment industry. And so,
right.
man, you lucked out.
And I have to thank an artist that I interviewed. Every time I would interview him, he would always start singing Check the Rhymes. And so I was like, he might be onto something.
Have you had an interview ever just totally tank?
I honestly, a lot of interviews with comedians don't go over as well as I think they should because you're thinking you're talking to a comedian, they should be funny. But I've had quite a few, well, maybe like three, where I'm like, they're not making me laugh and it's just barely dry.
Well, and you've got such a great laugh too. So they should
Yeah.
have done it. They missed the opportunity.
Right. And then there are others that are absolutely great. But yeah, I haven't had like a horrible, horrible interview that, yeah, I can't think of one. Like they're all, and I love the ones that are like 6 minutes or less because those are just quick and easy. And, you don't have to do a lot to prepare for those. And then you can churn out a lot of content, I feel like, so it's
Mhm.
rare that I try to do longer ones, but yeah, so like the longer ones I like to reserve for the legends like Tito Jackson.
Oh, well, I mean, thank you so much. Thank you so much for meeting with me. And I can't wait to show this to my students. And I really like all of the wonderful feedback you gave in terms of becoming a writer, creating your brand, getting yourself out there. And I just thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope that they can take something from this, and if they have any questions they can absolutely reach out.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for the offer. Thanks.